Well, Honorable Chairperson, Mohammed Ghulam Haider Jaidi Sahab, Professor Manoj Kumar, Professor Sanjay Sujko, and my fellow colleagues. First of all, before I start, I would like to congratulate the organizers for giving us this opportunity to share the expertise in different areas of material science. And it has been very informative and very enriching so far, and I hope it will add a lot to all our knowledge banks. Now, my topic was doping and co-doping as optical engineering tools. First of all, I was trying to consider graphene. So this is my affiliation. I belong to the Department of Higher Education, Government of Haryana in India. Department of Higher Education is basically an umbrella of all these institutions, and we can be transferred anywhere in any of the institutions. So we can be affiliated to many institutions. And now, carbon has always been a very interesting research object. And surprisingly, you can see that it has earned trifecta of mega awards. Nobel Prize in 1996 for discovery of fullerene, then Nobel Prize for discovery of graphene, and Kavli Prize for discovery of carbon nanotubes. And because of, you all know, because of its property of catenation, it has such a vast spectrum of allotropes associated with it. So first of all, I was trying to focus my talk on graphene, but I found, though it seemed simple, but for simulation, it proved to be a difficult structure for me. So I changed to carbon nanotubes. So carbon nanotubes you are all familiar with, so I don't need to introduce it. Different properties you are all aware of. Now, most of the fellow colleagues here are experimentalists, but somehow the way the research has developed these days, experiment and theory, they have a new partner, and that is simulation after the advent of computers. So supercomputer simulations are part of every research work nowadays. So different computational tools we use, those who are involved in simulation. They can be atomistic tools as well. They can be continuum tools as well. Different type of structures we simulate. Sometimes we prefer finite structures depending upon the demand of the calculation and depending upon the system we have, capacity of the system. And there are different methods. Some are based on classical theories, some are based on quantum mechanical theories. So the choice of the method also depends upon the nature of the problem. So basically my work in this talk will be focused on DFT calculations, AB initio calculations, in which we assume that all the properties can be expressed in terms of density. Now, this is the software I have used for the calculations. I have used Material Studio 7.0. So just a snapshot of the screen, how it appears when we simulate the structures. It has different builders. Using these builders, we develop the structures, we formulate. Just like experimentalists play with concentrations and configurations, same way we play with the parameters we use to simulate. Now, how the modeling goes. First of all, we build the model. Then sometimes that stabilizes, sometimes that doesn't stabilize. So we have to work with the parameters you choose, the functionals, the sub-functionals theoreticians choose. And if the results are not as expected, we have to refine our model, then validate with the experimental results also. And a lot of refinement goes on. Then we think of the simulation algorithm, and whatever results we get, then the analysis part, just like experiment. So that is the procedure. Now, this is the single walled carbon nanotube I simulated. It was 90, I guess. And yeah. Then when we set up the task, We use the supercell method. Like I have just simulated one cell, but the computer, when it will calculate, it will create a supercell out of that, and it will create the properties over the entire structure. Now, when we simulate the structure, so first of all, we check out whether the structure is stable or not. We calculate its energy, we calculate its maximum force during the vibration and all. And there are particular limits in the literature from which we check whether the structure is stable or not. And when the structure is optimized, after that, we can give the task of calculation of different properties to the computer. This is the 3D view of the single wall carbon nanotube that I simulated. Now comes the part where we manipulate the simulations in our benefit. Like single wall carbon nanotube, everyone knows. Mostly sabhi chiralities ki we know the optical properties, electrical properties, etc., etc. But the game is when we dope different atoms into the single wall carbon nanotube structure, how the properties are modified. So like these are when I was studying the literature, I found that this carbon nanotubes were doped with boron, and those properties were studied. They were doped with nitrogen, and those properties were studied, but nobody had studied the co-doping part of it. If we dope the same structure with two different atoms, one trivalent, one pentavalent, we can try, and like that, whatever fits. So whether that structure will be stable or not, first thing, and second thing, if that is stable, how the properties will change. So I used these two combinations, one aluminium and phosphorus, and one aluminium, nitrogen, and phosphorus. And then I compared the properties with the pristine structure. So these are the optical properties, the result I got after the calculations. Like these are dielectric function spectra. Sorry. You can see the blue part that is expressing the real part of the dielectric function, and the black curve that is representing the imaginary part of the dielectric function. And there are different family in optics from which we can calculate the refractive index of particular material in messages. Whatever we want to find out at whatever frequency, we can calculate using those formula from these dielectric function graphs. And the static values I have given here in the tabular form. So you can see that when we dope with aluminium and phosphorus, there is slight increase in the dielectric function. And if another material is doped, another atom is doped, then there is further increase. While in the unpolarized case, you can see there is a drastic change in the pattern. If the light is unpolarized, then pristine has 12.6. When we dope with aluminium and phosphorus, there is a steep increase. But if the third atom is doped, then the dielectric function decreases. So there are different variations that we can find out by doping different combinations of atoms. These are refractive index spectra. Similarly, those have been calculated over the stabilized structures. So in this case also, you can see the pattern is different for the polarized light, and the pattern is different for the unpolarized light. Then reflection spectra, this is very interesting, like the window panes of aeroplanes when we plan which material can be better. So we'll want the reflectivity to be high. So accordingly, we can choose the material to be doped to improvise the material of the whatever window pane we are using, or for solar cells, you can say the material whenever we have to consider. So these properties, how they vary, these variations can be very important. These are, this is not electrical conductivity, this is optical conductivity. This is the conductivity spectra, real and imaginary part. And this is the loss function, loss due to absorption. So this is how the co-doping of different atoms into the single-walled carbon nanotube structures changes the various optical properties, and these changes can be used to tailor nanomaterials, carbon nanomaterials, doped single-walled carbon nanotubes as per the requirement of our application. So this all calculation I have done on single wall carbon nanotube, and right now my calculations on graphene are going on. So I'm finding some difficulty in stabilizing the structure. So same way we can but calculate for graphene also. And like I was telling you that simulation is very good partner to experiment as well as theory. So in that case, I have inserted these two new slides. Like recently a paper was published in which someone reported this single walled carbon nanotube dimer. And I was very intrigued by this structure. So I thought, why not to see what this dimerization does to the Raman spectra of the CNT. So I simulated this structure. This was experimentally observed first, and I simulated then after. And this is the dimer I simulated. And these are the vibrational modes of this single-walled dimer, single-walled carbon nanotube dimer. So these slides I inserted just to show that how interesting it can be if the experimentalists and the theoreticians work together and use simulation as a tool. So these are the different frequency modes of the single-walled carbon nanotube spectra. These are my collaborators who have been associated with me throughout my research work that I presented here. Professor Swapan Kepati from Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research, Madam Swastika Banerjee from Lawrence Berkeley Lab, US, Madam Neena Jaggi, she is from NIT Kurukshetra, and myself. So we have done this work in collaboration. And there's a long way to go, of course. There are so many problems in mind that we still have to work upon. And I hope this research work will give some new results and some new problems to fellow scientists. Thank you. Thank you so much.